Are you ready for Fright Night? Well, if you're not, movie maven Andrea Mays is a doctoral candidate at the University of New Mexico's Department of American Studies. She's joining us with her picks for classic horror movies to keep you spooked on Halloween night. So, Andrea, very excited about this segment. One of my favorite topics in the world.
Horror movies.
Yes, scary movies. So, some Halloween movies, of course, are not, suitable for the entire family. I definitely know that. So let's start off talking about some of the kid-friendly picks.
Some of my favorite children's movies do three things. And those three things are, they balance scary with fun, there's got to be humor, and they also have a bit of a message for children.
Okay.
Because I think if you're going to introduce children to things that could be a little bit unsettling, there should be something good in them.
Sure.
So I reached way back into the movie vault for the first one, and the first film that I think most kids can laugh at, and adults as well, is The Ghost and Mr. Chicken with Don Knotts, which is an old black and white movie, which is just, it's hilarious to see Don Knotts do fear. He does it like no one else.
Yeah.
The others are simple classics that air on television generally and are now available on DVD and Blu-ray as well. The classic Charlie Brown Halloween is very good. That's a very funny Halloween movie. Frankenweenie, which is actually Tim Burton's student film.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yes, it's a short. It was one of his student films. It's good. It's a little bone-chilling, even for kids, but it also has an interesting story about pets and children and wanting to bring your pet back from the dead. I looked at it and I thought, wow, this is a bit like children's Pet Cemetery by Stephen King.
Right.
That's kind of good. But my favorite it's on cable now and it's also available on DVD, is Hotel Transylvania, which stars the voice of Adam Sandler. And it's just really this wonderful film about children accepting differences, vampires and monsters accepting humans and vice versa. And there's this interesting moment where it mixes the genre of the classic Halloween movie with a romance movie. So it's kind of like Halloween Romeo and Juliet, between Dracula's daughter and a backpacker who finds Dracula's haven for monsters to protect them from humans. So it's a very sweet movie. It's very funny, and it also has that element that I think is great for parents who have to sit through these movies, right, with their children. There are a lot of intertextual references to adult movies.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about it, because you kind of hit on it, the romance. Let's talk about the Halloween chick flick, which combines a little bit of romance, a little bit of scares. So which are our favorites?
One of my favorites is actually a movie from the 90s called Truly, Madly, Deeply. And it stars Alan Rickman, who we all know as Snape from the Harry Potter franchise. But Rickman is a ghost. He plays a ghost in this movie who haunts his former wife. And it's a romance, but it's also really creepy because with his spirit coming back to visit his wife, he also brings these other spirits and ghosts, and they're in various stages of decay after death. So there's a gross out element, but it's also a very moving love story, and that's good. The Twilight series, I think, has capitalized on the genre mixing better than any other series of romance horror movies. And I think any one of those, I think the first two Twilight movies are the best. Beyond that, they're okay. Right. They get a little implausible after
seems the way sequels go.
Exactly. They sort of like a copy. It loses its resonance, right, in the reproduction. Blood and Chocolate with Hugh Dancy, which is a different spin on the werewolf movie, and it adds this culinary element because the werewolf's love interest actually is someone who makes chocolate. So it's a real interesting twist.
Well, and just because, again, I could spend hours talking about this, we also have Dracula on the list, is that right?
The original Dracula. One of the all-time favorite remakes of Dracula recently done was the one done in the 90s, which stars Gary Oldman, which is gross and wonderful and suspenseful.
It's a brilliant film.
And it's beautifully shot. It's really well done.
Now, we're talking about, of course, this is off the Bela Lugosi Dracula, so let's talk a little bit about the old-fashioned scary movies. Which are your favorites there?
The old-fashioned scary movies, definitely the old werewolf. That's a great one. The old Dracula, the original Nosferatu, is really, really a good one if you want to dig into that vault. And the other, some of the sort of new classics, right? The Shining with Jack Nicholson. He's also in one of my all-time favorite horror movies, Wolf with Michelle Pfeiffer, which also is a romance horror mix. And
Shining there.
The Shining there. He's wonderful.
Jack.
He was wonderful in that.
And there's also just a bit of The Shining. This one of my favorites, of course. The Shining. We originally, apparently Stanley Kubrick didn't want Jack Nicholson, right? He tried to, or Stephen King didn't want Jack Nicholson. And so he said he wanted someone that looked a little more normal looking. Of course, Jack just reads a phone book and he's scary.
Right.
And we also, that famous blood scene with the elevators, it took 9 days to shoot. Is that right? It took like 3 times?
Yes.
Because Kubrick was saying that the blood
doesn't look like blood.
It didn't look like blood.
Right.
Which, how do you know what a flood of blood looks like, Stanley Kubrick?
Right. But film does an interesting thing to colors. So sometimes, I mean, that is a very popular thing to hear people say about blood in films. It doesn't look like blood. It looks like grape jelly, or it looks like cranberry juice. It doesn't look like blood. So that's not an unusual thing.
And then talking about modern classics as well, of course, what list would be complete without The Exorcist?
The Exorcist is on everybody's scariest movie of all time list. Yes, it's wonderful. And there's a lot of scary backstory around the making of The Exorcist. It was a set that was plagued with problems. People got sick, some people died. I mean, there's all of this lore that has kind of grown up around the film in time. And it's really one of the movies that I think still, you only need to see it once, right?
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's also, I think, it's really important to know because it really kind of set the stage for horror to be taken seriously. It was nominated for an Academy Award.
Definitely. One of the first horror films ever to be nominated for an Academy Award. The other one I think that does a good job of creating, though it's not the same subject matter, it does a good job of creating the certain similar elements of suspense, is the movie The Mothman Prophecies, which is one of the movies I've watched recently that is absolutely terrifying. And I think that there's a new movie out called The Conjuring.
Yes.
That's on cable that I think is going to match Mothman Prophecies in terms of just creeping you out.
Awesome. Well, plenty to choose from, folks. Andrea, thank you so much for your picks. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chad.
All right, thank you. Well.